All right, so when you're making a bass line for your beat, all right, you don't have to necessarily use a bass guitar or a bass sample all the time. You could just use pretty much whatever you want, all right? Now, I'm going to show you an example here. Okay, I have an organ from a plugin, and I created this little pattern. If you want to check it out here. Whoops. All right, so I created this little pattern here. If you want to check this out here. All right, so definitely I would not use that for any kind of hip hop beat. I mean, it just sounds pretty lame. So what I did was I added a filter to it. Okay, I added this EQ to it, actually, I should say. And let's hear how it sounds with the EQ. So it's not much of a difference, but what I did was, if you look here, I lowered the highs and brought up the low and the low mid, right, to give more bass to it. And then I added the filter to it, this low pass filter. Now check it out. Now that sounds a lot better. All right. Now the first part and the last part, you hear the bass of the note. Okay. You don't really hear it from here to here, and that's okay. But it turned out that way. But that's all right because it shows you that, you know, you're gonna have some variation in it and all that stuff when using a plugin. When using a sample, which I do often, it's actually like all bets are off, right? Like it doesn't really matter because you have a whole sample that you're using, and you just, you know, put a low pass filter on it, and you're good to go. That's it. I mean, you know, a few years ago, I used a sample. I think it was Billy Idol or something like that, whatever it was. So I made each track, and that's what happened. I took just like 2 bars of it, put a low pass, looped it, and there was my bass line. There was my bass. I mean, that was it. You know, so I'm not going to show you the sample in this example because unfortunately, a lot of times YouTube acts like a little bitch when it comes to copyright and all that. But so I'm just going to show you this stuff. And anyway, what I did was I added some drums here. This drum break. All right, so let's listen to it now. All right, and then some piano. All right, so for the piano, I followed the same pattern as I did with the bass here. Okay, it's just that the bass is at a different starts at a different range than the piano, but it's the same pattern. All right, and the thing is that with the piano, I brought down the volume, EQ'd it a bit. I brought down the lows because otherwise, you know, the piano was very, very heavy. I didn't want it to mash with the bass too much. Well, the organ, I should say, too much. So anyway, but when you listen to it, you don't really hear from here to here. Okay, so that's just an example that I'm giving, but you could use these parts. I mean, this is how bassy that is. You can use that and do whatever else you want with it. You can put it lower. Let's see how it sounds lower. Whatever. Okay, let's take the, hold on, those are a bunch of chords, so let's take it out. Well, that's nice. So you can use just that, basically. Okay, so let's say, for example, we're going to duplicate this to here. Okay, I'm going to take this out. All right, so now I just pitched it down and took the chords away and all that. So I just have the basic organ note. Listen how dope that is. So you could just do whatever with that, all right? You don't have to use the chords I gave as an example, but basically that's it. I mean, so you have your organ, all right? And in the organ, you can just really pitch it down, bump up the EQ, or the low end of the EQ, add a low pass filter. And there's your bass right there. So you don't have to always go with a bass guitar or whatever, some kind of bass sample, none of that stuff. But on the other hand, if you're going to use a sample, like I said, you can use whatever you want, even if it's got the drums, as long as you put a low pass on it, you know, and you bump it up with some saturation or whatever. Nobody's going to really hear the drums and all that stuff, but it's going to sound nice, you know, and especially when you're using a sample because it really, you know, it's already recorded, right? It's already this melody that's recorded, so it's going to give your beat some nice flavor to it. But if you're just using a plugin like this, some organ or whatever, you're good to go. All right, so that's it for me. Make sure you click on like and subscribe, and go make some beats.